story about God's faithfulness, a story about his promises, and a story about he is more than anything culture can throw at you. He's more than your failures. He's more than things you can't do. He's bigger than that. Because today I want to share with you my story, the story of Sarai. Sarai, I was born Sarai in the city of Ur of the Chaldeans. It's a beautiful city. I was born into the clan of Terah, and the city is set between the Euphrates and the Tigris River. And it's a huge city. It's already 1,000 years old when I'm born. It has beautiful streets. We have hospitals. We have schools. And it was a wonderful time of peace and prosperity in the city of Ur. One of my favorite childhood memories is of waking up in the mornings. When it was hot in the summer months, we didn't sleep in our rooms because they were too hot and dusty. So we would drag our sleeping mats up onto the roof, and the stars became our ceiling. And the soft evening breeze would blow in from the desert and cool our cheeks. We'd wake in the morning with the sun kissing us on the brows, and a breeze from the harbours from the north and west would blow in and cool us. We'd run downstairs and grab some fruit before charging out into the market, because it was a huge trade city. It was the biggest trade route in the known world. So we would run down to the market to see what's new, which traders have come in from all over the world with anything your heart could desire. My favourite store was probably where they sold the jewellery. And my sisters and I would go there. They would have beautiful gold and turquoise. And you'd pick over it and think what we would nag our dads to buy us for the next time, that there was a festival or a holiday or a holy day. Our dads would be sitting in the courtyards, drinking beer through long straws, wearing woolen skirts and just thinking about the world and how peace and prosperity had come to us all. The city of Ur was built underneath a ziggurat. A ziggurat was a huge edifice with multiple tiers that reached up to the gods. And on the top of the ziggurat was the temple to the god of Nana, the god of the moon. Our society was polytheistic, which means there were lots of gods. We had gods for everything you could imagine. And that meant lots of holidays for us children, lots of festival days and lots of fun. But there was a dark side too. God of Nana was just one of the many who demanded human sacrifice and other dark deeds. Our family was quite well known, and we could trace our lineage all the way back to Shem, the son of Noah after the great flood. And my one cousin, Abram, he didn't worship any of the gods of Ur. It marked him as different. He only worshipped the God that Noah had worshipped, Yahweh, Elohim, the one true living God. And he was different to the other young men. And when I became of marriageable age, our patriarch Terah, who was Abram's father, sanctioned our marriage. And it was normal. We all married our cousins. We stayed in a clan. It was safer that way. And we were happy. We knew each other well. We'd grown up together. It was a really happy marriage in a beautiful city. And life was pretty perfect. Except for one thing. Couldn't have children. And at first it was okay. The months would pass and it was, well, we're building a life together. We're getting to know each other. We're exploring the city. And then it started to hurt. Everywhere you looked, there were pregnant women. Their bellies swelling. Their pride as they lifted their shoulders in the marketplace. And for me, nothing. I didn't understand. And at first we talked about it and we planned for what we would do with this big family when it came, but it never came. So when Terah, the patriarch, said his brother Haran had died and Lot, his nephew, was living with him, and our family group was now so large he wanted to move closer towards the land of Canaan. I wasn't given a choice. We're a patriarchal society. But part of me was, no, I want to stay in the city with the bright lights, all my friends, the extended family, the markets. But there was another part of me that wanted a new life. I was tired of the mockery. I was tired of the contempt of the women in the city because they knew of my barren state. And who knows, maybe this would change our lives, and maybe now I would have a child. And moving wasn't easy. It was hard. We would be leaving our beautiful buildings and heading out along the Negev desert, all the way along the Euphrates River. And it would be a different nomadic lifestyle, one I hadn't grown up with. But it could also be exciting. So the men had made the decision, and they started to plan for us to go. No small feat. There were over 1,000 of us who would be moving in the caravan. We had 300 soldiers who would protect us from the nomadic tribes in the desert who were brutal and rather barbaric. We had servants, we had livestock, we had household goods. And so when we were ready, we packed up and the caravan set out. Because I was Abram's wife, I was allowed one of the rare camels, and I love traveling on a camel. It's so exciting. You can see for miles. You could see across the undulating sands, the heat shimmering up in the golden light. You could dream while they bounced around and they rocked you across the desert. And their legs were so long, they just ate up the miles. At night, we would stop in camp, and the men would unpack the tents, roll up the carpets, get down the cooking utensils, and we would prepare the meals for the rest of the night and the next day. Eventually, we came to another city called Haran. Haran was a nice city. It wasn't as big as Ur, but still on the trade route, and there was still a lot going for it, and it was a prosperous place. And so we set up there for a while. Our patriarch, Terah, wasn't well, so we stayed, and our livestock grew. We gained more servants. And sadly, Terah died. And Lot came and joined with us. He was now a wealthy man. He'd inherited from his uncle. But he joined with us as a support for our family. And that's how we lived in my time. And then one day, Abram came in, his face aglow. He'd met with God in the field. And Yahweh had said it was time to leave, that he would take us to a land he promised to our descendants. And he promised that Abram's descendants would be more than the stars in the sky. And we would be a special nation through whom all the peoples of the earth would one day be blessed. That was exciting. But as a barren woman, all I heard was descendants. Descendants meant children. Children meant babies. That meant we would have children still. And Abram said his father had sired him when his father was in his 70s, and his dad was 205 when he died. There was time. There was time. What was my rush? And just as well, we didn't have small babies. It would have been harder to travel with small children. And so we started to pack up. And I'll be honest, I wasn't as excited this time. Bouncing around on a camel, I think I was a little bit old for that now. So I decided to join the other slightly mature ladies in the carts. And this time, I wasn't so excited to see what the sand dunes looked like. I'd seen it before. And our caravan spread out with our guards surrounding us, the livestock following behind, the heat beating down on our heads. And I remember sitting in that cart and thinking, I was so divided. My heart clung to God's promise. We were going to a new future, to a land he had given us, to a land where my children would live. That meant God had promised me children, and my heart held onto it with everything it possibly could. But heads don't always listen to your hearts. And in my head it would say, but you're old. Your husband's even older. You're going to be living in a tent for the rest of your life. You don't even know where you're going. You're leaving behind your security. Everything that you are is gone. You're not going to another city. You're going to become nomadic tent dwellers. Is this really what you were born for? And God, you couldn't let me fall pregnant when I was 20? How am I going to fall pregnant now? And those thoughts just circled in my head and were only broken by us sinking into the dunes, and the soldiers would come and we'd all get out the cart and they'd dig us out and we'd move on. Because of our mode of transport and there were no roads, we only did about 30 kilometers a day, so it took us a month to get down to Canaan. And 3 times on the journey, 3 times God promised Abram again that these were the lands he would give us. Even though they were occupied, the Canaanites already lived there. But God said these would be our lands. And each time, Abram believed. And he would build an altar and he would thank God for this miracle. And I'll be like, yeah, that's cool, but what about the other part? Where are the descendants? When is this going to happen? It's still not happened. We carried on going south. But a famine hit the land. And because we were bordering on the desert, when a famine hit, it meant the land of Canaan was hit hard. So we decided to move back down to Egypt. Egypt was a very fertile region. And because of the Nile River, they always had grain long after everyone else. And so we headed down that way. We had money to buy grain. It wasn't a problem. On the route down, my darling husband said to me, please go in as my cousin, not as my wife. Because in that culture, if they thought I was worth having, they would just remove the problem of a husband by removing Abram from his will. So just focus on the cousin bit, that your family, not that you're not. I thought they're far more likely to want his sheep than me. Being a dutiful wife, I went in as Abram's cousin. And I hate to admit this, as every wife does, but he was right. Pharaoh heard of me, the woman from Ur, and decided he did want me. And before we knew what had happened, he had sent a wonderful gift to my husband of livestock beyond measure and taken me into his harem. Can you imagine how I felt? I was horrified. I'm a married woman. I don't want to be with the Pharaoh of Egypt. It's a foreign culture, a godless culture. And my husband didn't come for me. But you know who did? Yahweh. Yahweh came through for me. He sent a curse onto the house of Pharaoh, and they all fell ill. My trust in God multiplied. He did that just for me. When Pharaoh went to his priests and wise men and they said it was because he'd taken me, Abram's wife, he was furious. You can imagine, pharaohs were not used to being thwarted, and he was angry. We had threatened his family, and he sent for my husband. And Abram said, I was scared you would kill me. And he said, I'm scared of your God, I won't kill you, but get off my land. Take your stuff, your livestock, everything you've got, and just get out of Egypt. We did in a hurry. Fastest pack up I've ever done. And we headed back out into the Negev. Took a while for me to forgive my husband, I will be honest. I was rather angry. I mean, how would you feel? Yes, take her, I'll keep the goats. But we reconciled, and we headed out. Now we had more livestock than when we'd arrived in Egypt. And we had new servants, we had more goods. I had a new servant too, the Egyptian girl Hagar, who came with us. And she was sweet, and she was a hard worker, and she was added to our family. We headed back up to Canaan, and we realized that our caravan was now far too large. With Lot's wealth and our wealth, our herdsmen were fighting over pastures and fighting over water. And Abram very magnanimously said to Lot, our cousin, well, you choose. Where do you want to go? And Lot, being Lot, said he would take the fertile Jordan Valley. So he packed up his goods, and very amicably he headed off towards Sodom and Gomorrah, and we stayed in Canaan. And eventually we settled at the big oak trees of Memorah near Hebron. We were still in tents, but don't visualize a small little tent. We did things in style. Our tents were made of carpets and camel skin. They were beautiful. We stood up in our tents. We had carpets rolled out. It was a beautiful place to be. It was lovely. And life was good, mostly. But I still didn't have children. This was a long time after God's promise. Yahweh, are you still there? I'm living in a tent. I've given up everything. I still don't have one child. And I now no longer can have children. Those years are gone. My body says no more. It's not going to happen. And so being a goer, a getter, hardworking, striving, I thought I'd just help God along a bit. Just a little. And I questioned Abram, and I said, you got this promise from God. I didn't. He never said it was for Sarah. He said it was for you. So in my worldly wisdom, and in the method that we used in our culture, I gave him my servant girl Hagar. And I said, Abram, sleep with her. If she falls pregnant with a child, at least it's partly mine and it's yours. and your descendants will come from you, and we can get this great nation. And that's maybe why the Canaanites are still in occupation, because I haven't fallen pregnant. Maybe it's me. It's my fault God's not fulfilling his promises. And you know, the name Sarah means troublesome. And Abram didn't want to do it. But I can live up to my name. I nagged. I begged. I cried. I bullied. And I demanded until I got my way. So eventually Abram said yes. And he did sleep with Hagar. And she did fall pregnant. So easily she did what I couldn't do. And I have to admit in my heart, I hated her. Every time she looked at me, I could see the contempt in her eyes. I could see that she just looked down on me. So easy for her. And as her belly swelled, I hated her more. And I'm ashamed of how I behaved. All the hurts from being barren just came out, and I was mean. I treated her so badly she ran away. She would rather face the desert as a pregnant woman than face me. And my husband was furious. He was so angry with me. I wanted this. I got what I wanted. I'd interfered in God's plan. And I still wasn't happy? Well, I wasn't. And I wasn't happy with him either. He didn't have to sleep with her. He didn't have to listen. It was his fault. God is good. He looked after Hagar in the desert. And he saw her. And he saw her distress. And he told her to come back. And she did. She obeyed, and she said God had seen her. And he had promised that her son would also be the founder of a great nation. I was so humiliated. I was so ashamed. Did this mean I'd lost God's love? Would I not be part of his plan anymore? So foolish, so vain to think that I could do it without him. And eventually Hagar's child was born, a boy. And they called him Ishmael, God sees. And every time Abram picked him up and held him, my heart broke just a little bit more. And every time he chased him around the grounds and laughed at his antics, it hurt just a little bit more. But it was my own fault. I had done this. This wasn't God, this was me. And I waited, and nothing happened. And Ishmael grew, and Abram loved him. And I did say sorry to God. And I tried to follow him. And one day Yahweh appeared again to Abram, and he cut a covenant. A covenant is a solid promise. It's one you can't break. And he told Abram, you will be the father of a great nation. And I want to change your name from Abram to Abraham, father of many. And you know what? Yahweh is so gracious. Yahweh is so good. In spite of my failure to fall pregnant, in spite of my pride and interfering, in spite of how troublesome I've been, God said he wanted to change my name too. I wasn't going to be Sarai, troublesome anymore. I was to be Sarah, princess, mother of kings. God, you are so gracious. You are so good. And when Abram heard that I was to be mother of kings, he laughed. I was really old. I was 90. None of you in this room are 90. Can you imagine? Then we thought, you know what? God can do anything. And a few days later, Abraham was sitting outside the tent, and he saw 3 men approaching, and something in him rose up. He knew these weren't just ordinary men. And he ran out to greet them. And he welcomed them into our home, and he prepared a meal, and he didn't even eat with them. He sat next to them and served them like a servant, because there was something about these men. And they said to him, God has said, you will have more descendants than our grains of sand in the shore. And your wife Sarah will bear you a son. I wasn't in the room, I was outside the tent, and I laughed. And it wasn't a laugh of joy, it was a laugh of derision. How, Lord? How? I'm dried up, I'm tired, I'm old, it's not going to happen. And when these men said, why does your wife laugh? Doesn't she trust God? I lied. I said, no, I didn't laugh. But they knew I did. And I was mortified. I was mortified. But there was a spark of hope. God had taken the trouble to send these men to tell us his word, that I was to be a mother. And you know, this was the God that Shem had told his descendants created everything. He spoke and the world became. He breathed out the very stars we slept under at night. Surely my age wouldn't limit him. My inability couldn't limit a God that big. And hope was kindled in me. And so we decided at our great age to try. And God, our gracious, wonderful Yahweh, I felt pregnant. Can you just feel in your heart how that felt? I had waited for 70 years for this incredible, incredible blessing. And suddenly, I laughed with joy at everything. Do you know, I enjoyed every aspect of that pregnancy. I enjoyed going to the toilet 300 times a day. I enjoyed my back getting sore. I enjoyed the heartburn because I was finally experiencing this great and incredible gift from God. It was a miracle beyond miracles. And life was perfect. Except that Hagar was the miracle with her son Ishmael. Anyway, my son was born a healthy, beautiful boy. We called him Loves, because his story was filled with laughter. And motherhood was so much more than I dreamed. It was so much richer than I could ever have imagined. And life was glorious. In our culture, when a child is no longer being fed from his mum, we call it a weaning party. And we were setting up for his banquet. So my son was about a year and a half, 2. And when we were setting up for the banquet and preparing for this incredible celebration and feast, I looked up and there was Ishmael teasing my son, making him cry just before his special day. You know, he would now have some of my son's inheritance, some of my son's attention from his dad. Life would be so perfect if he just wasn't here. And then I convinced myself that if Hagar and Ishmael weren't there, the reminder of my barrenness would be gone. The reminder of my foolishness that was in my face every single day would be gone. And then life would really be perfect, wouldn't it? It would be all joy. And I let that bitterness rise up in my heart. And I let it infiltrate my head. And it's all I could think of. And I went to my long-suffering husband. And I noticed, I said, I don't want them here. She's an Egyptian. I don't want them here anymore. And I think I'd been such a nuisance and such a nag that Abraham said I could do what I wanted. They were my servants after all. And God, please forgive me. I did the worst thing imaginable. I sent them into the desert. A mother and her 15-year-old son. And I didn't care that it was my fault that they even were a Christian. I didn't care that Ishmael was Isaac's half-brother and Abraham's son. All I saw was my solution, my way of getting to God's promises for my son. And you know, it was a bitterness and an anger that would affect my son's families and descendants for generations to come. Because God saw Hagar's plight, and He saved her. He brought her water when she had none. And He saw her through, and her son, to Egypt. And there Ishmael married an Egyptian girl, and became, as God had promised, the father of a great nation. But I had infected them with my bitterness and my hatred, and they became their hated enemy for generations to come. So what would I like you to know from my story? Yes, one day I will be known as a great woman of faith. But there's so much more to my story than that. I'd like you to remember is that in spite of every failure, in spite of my physical inability to have children, God made a way. In spite of what our culture said was the norm, God had a better way. In spite of my failure to wait and trust, God still fulfilled His promises. And He can do the same for you. Our God is the Creator. Our God is all-powerful. And most importantly, He keeps His promises. And today you have access to promises in His book. He has made promises for you and your children. Promises that are valid today and that He will fulfill in your life and your children's life. The story is found in Genesis, verse chapter 3. And I really encourage you to go and read it. And then read further. Find His promises for you. Hold them in your heart. And know that no matter how long it takes, no matter how hard it is, no matter how cross-culture it is, God will always come through for you and for your children. Thank you for listening.